Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. There's a lot of evil and hate in our world. As if the attitude is not bad enough, there are people who then act upon this hate, sometimes with dire consequences. We've seen this played out right here in Kansas City. An Indian man lost his life at a suburban bar because one customer didn't like immigrants, the other, and took his hatred out to the ultimate level, killing the man. Many people of color have faced everything from hateful words to acts of violence just because of the color of their skin. Racial slurs have been splashed across churches, homes, and other buildings using hateful language that's hurtful. Racial injustice become front and center with the death of George Floyd in 2019. So how do we change this hateful world we live in? Unite KC, a local nonprofit, is about bringing people together for heart transformation, building community, and moving toward racial healing. What's the approach and how does it work? Well, Jarrett joins us. He's the executive director of Unite KC, and we're going to talk about all those things. Ray, thank you for joining us.
You're quite welcome. It's an honor and a privilege.
All right, so Unite KC sounds great and grandiose and wonderful. How did this whole conversation or movement begin?
Well, you're absolutely right. A watershed moment for us here in Kansas City and around the country was George Floyd's murder. And Dayton Moore, who is the president of baseball operations for the Royals, just decided that what he would do is get together with some of the leaders around the city and start a dialogue. I mean, we have a lot of good connections within the city, the people that he initially called, and they just, what do we do? I don't know what to do, but we need to do something.
So I'm curious, who did he call? Who was on Dayton Moore's short list? We know in the baseball world who that would be, but who were the people that Dayton, with his reach, was able to pull to the tables, as it were?
Well, a lot of the people ended up being on either the leadership team or the board of directors. And so I'll just go through, as a matter of fact, it kind of is a wonderful story about at least one of the individuals, which was kind of like the catalyst for all of us getting to know one another. And his name is Jeremiah Enna. He runs the Sterling Dance Theater and the Culture House. And if you know anything about Kansas City Treasures and things that go on in the arts world, he hosts a thing called The Underground. It's a dance performance about the Underground Railroad. That's exactly where I met Dayton Moore and first started working with him. And there's another gentleman by the name of Jimmy Dodd, who is the CEO of Pastor Serve. It's a wonderful operation that just exists to help people, the clergy. You know, who do they go to when they need care and when they need somebody to talk to? And then there's Pam Harris, Amy Minnick, Pastor John Brooks, who is the pastor of a large Black church in Kansas City, Missouri. Those are some of the people he initially called to say, start this dialogue about what do we do? How do we avoid having this racial unrest and turmoil in Kansas City? And what do we do to positively impact the residents of all the residents in our city? So.
I love the diverse group coming to the table. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, so to speak, to how do you open that conversation?
Yeah.
With people who may not have known each other.
Yes.
You weren't around at that time?
No. This is one of those rare opportunities where the board existed before the executive director came along. So, but we are actually, just a shameless plug here, we're writing a book called One Good Thing. And it actually starts to outline some of those initial steps in when Unite KC was formed. So that's going to be interesting, and it'll feature a lot of people here in the community who have done one good thing.
How interesting. So can you even since you came in after, it's not the usual way that a nonprofit gets formed. Form the board and then go and do the other things. Can you tell that story a little bit and then what the steps were to bring it together?
Well, exactly. It isn't the normal way. And as they began to dialogue, it was on a regular basis, I think every week, sometimes every 2 weeks. And the audience would grow and grow and grow with people who were inviting others to the meetings to go, hey, I brought Joe along or Susie or Pam or whoever, and they have a good, unique perspective about this. And they just got some counsel and some wisdom along the way. And they said, you know what, you guys you're taking on a big task. You might want to think about forming a 501c3, a nonprofit. And so they thought, well, let's do that. And there are a lot of people who were there to help to work on the administrative things, the company forming the paperwork, and even outlining the charter, which we call a covenant, of what we stand for and how we're going to make these changes. And so that's where they started. And then they said, well, if we're going to do that, we got to find somebody. And there's another cool long story about how they found me. So,
well, please share. How is it that you came to this once they put it all together?
Well, Jeremiah Enna, who is on our board of directors, he and I have been associates and friends and business arrangements with one another for years. And so he basically said, hey, and it was actually during this COVID year. And he said, come over to the house. We're going to be in an open space in the backyard to celebrate my daughter's graduation. And while he had me there, he said, look, I'm going to send you a document. You should read it and then get back to me and let me know what you think. Well, I read it and I was like, this could work, the way that they were doing it. To kind of make the story a little shorter, we went to coffee a couple of times. And then he said, look, we're looking for somebody who's used to working with leaders, who's used to managing processes, who's been an entrepreneur, who's started things up from the ground floor. And that's you. We would like for you to consider us, but you can't say no. And that was the speech. So that's how I got involved.
How long have you been with the organization now?
So it's been 2 years. We've the first year, if anybody knows anything about leadership and leadership methodologies, you will know that leadership, when you're trying to do heart change, when you're trying to change people's mind, is very adaptive. That is, you gather all the information you can, and then you basically do what we call as an experiment. And so we did that the whole first year. Will this work? Will that work? What kinds of activities will get people involved? And so during that whole first year, we were trying to see what works. And now that we understand our pace, our voice, got our messaging right, this second year has been extremely successful for us, reaching out and working with people in the local area. So.
All right, I'll let you do the shameless plug. What is the message? What is it that Unite KC wants to do, and how do you do it?
We really want to do things grassroots. We could go out and, I could start trying to raise money to get big celebrities to come in and talk about what we want to do. But one-on-one, one relationship at a time, we want to educate, build everything on a foundation of education. How did we get here? And then relationships. As we begin to talk to one another and understand one another, the work becomes easy. Historically in Kansas City and probably in other places across the nation, whenever there's some type of social problem or social unrest, most people go to their clergy and then they try to go to their elected officials, and those people meet together. And what normally happens is the clergy have to go back and serve the people that they are in their congregations. And there's other things on the agenda for elected officials. So the genius of Unite KC is that we wanted to make sure that vertical markets, people in each vertical market would have a voice and be involved. And they have, for instance, if you're in media, you know the issues that have plagued Black people and minorities over the time of your career, and you know where the opportunities exist. And so those people get together and they come up with an action plan of how they want to execute, and we help support them. And that's what I believe is the genius of Unite KC. And we're trying to unite the city, so we don't invent anything. No, we normally look for people who have already got something going, and we partner with them so that when people come to us, we can immediately plug them in to do. And there's the tagline: one good thing.
That's a huge endeavor, pulling people together.
It is, but the one thing that's been great is that anytime we've shared our message, we've almost had no resistance to. Because everybody wants to live a life where it's enriched with people of different backgrounds. And the thing is that sometimes they feel that there's some special skill or magic formula to do that. And really, if you've ever been in any kind of relationship, you've already got the skill set. I mean, if you've been married, you didn't probably marry a clone of yourself. And so working through those differences is just becomes easier once you get over that fear.
Well, I'm going to challenge one of your statements because I want to hear the answer to it. You said we all want to, mix with different people, whether it's of ethnicity, of color, et cetera. There are people out there that do not want that. Well, so how do you deal with that?
That was a good challenge there. So I would say I would change that to most people. And we do know that we're not going to get everybody. It's the old 80-20 rule. And we figure if we get most of the people who actually have that desire or who may have some unconscious biases that have blocked their road to being able to do just that we can provide them with a better way than just standing on the street corner with a sign saying, I want white friends or I want Black friends. So it's all about finding ways, activities, gatherings, books, conversation cards, and different things like that so that people can start that dialogue. That's the main thing.
Can you share with us some examples of how in your short 2-year life of the organization, you've been helping to make that happen?
Sure. We have come to the conclusion that the best way to organize our year is to have 4 major events, 1 a quarter, monthly events, and then opportunities every day for people to interact. So every year we have an annual Walk for Unity. And so hundreds of people, thousands of people come out, and we just walk from one location, usually down to the Urban Youth Academy. And during the walk, we just don't want to make this a big symbolic thing. We pass out little cards that have 5 questions on them. And while you're walking with somebody who looks differently from you, you start the conversation with them by just going through those questions. And then we encourage people to exchange numbers and go have coffee and start to build relationships with one another and find commonality. I mean, common goals, business, sports is a big connector here in Kansas City. I see you got your Chiefs Kingdom up there. And I'm telling you, there's people who, if they wanted to, if everybody had free season tickets to a Chiefs game, they would make a lot of new friends. So
let's float that by Clark Hunt. Just one game. Everybody could have free tickets. Wouldn't that be
for everybody?
Wouldn't that be a concept? I'll tell you.
Have to build a couple of more stadiums.
That'd be okay, right?
That'd be okay.
We could flow, unfortunately, right now over into Kaufman, which I don't think is quite as packed as it's been in previous seasons. But we divert there. So you've got these 4 things. You've got the Walk for Unity. I'm just fascinated by how you pull people in, because not only are we racially divided in our community, in many ways, I think we are still geographically divided.
Absolutely.
People who live in various parts of the city. And I think it goes both ways. I think people who live on the east side don't necessarily go say, gee, I want to meet somebody who lives in Johnson County. So how do you deal with that?
And it has to do with the team that we built. A lot of people from all walks of life are volunteering to do this work. And so they have their network that they bring in. I mentioned Pastor John Brooks. He's got a large African-American or Black congregation, but we are doing an ingenious thing with churches. I'll just use them as the example to start with. We realize that Sunday morning is probably the most segregated hour in all of America. And that's not my quote. That's from a famous pastor. And so what the clergy are doing in Kansas City is having these church partnerships where a Black and a white pastor will decide to take this journey together. And as they do, their congregations begin to do life together. And so that's just one way. We have a sports domain. That's the vertical market where a lot of people who are either retired sports people, I'm Sean Barber, I could go on and mention a lot of different names. They are fully immersed in this movement, and they bring their network along, and people are able to connect that way as well. And so, there's arts, there's business, there's education, government, criminal justice. We have 11 different ways that people can get involved. And so with that far-reaching network, we're able to get into a lot of different neighborhoods.
And you've got all kinds of resources, I know, on your website, which is unitekc.org.
Yes.
So folks can go there and just see all of that. You've got covenants, you've got commitments, you've got a lot of it is religion-based while you're addressing racial. How does that mix? Sometimes I think that can be a little toxic for some people.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked, because I'm able to clear up a misconception about Unite KC. We are faith-based. That's who we are, and we don't apologize for that. But you don't have to be a faith-based person at all to join our movement or to be involved. If you really are passionate about seeing that type of unity across racial lines in Kansas City, you are welcome to join. And so we've had to say that a number of different times because people think that that's a requirement. And I think that if you come to our events, for instance, we have something called Second Saturday, and it moves around the city to make sure that we get it, around in different areas. Well, when you come, I don't think that you'd be blind to notice that we work faith-based, but it's not to where you would feel uncomfortable. So, we welcome everybody, all walks of life. That's what we're about.
So being Jewish, it'd be okay if I came, even though it seems to be based in Christian values?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have a number of Jewish people who are a part of Unite KC. They respect us for our beliefs, but we know that we're different. And as a matter of fact, even if you take religion out of it, there's a wide political spectrum of people in Unite KC, as wide as the racial divide is. And so economically, there are people who are at opposite ends. And so it's all about us treating people with respect, with honor and dignity, regardless of what they look like and where they came from.
That's terrific. Boy, if we could get everybody to swallow that pill, wouldn't that be great?
Man, I'll hold their nose and you open their mouths and we'll get it done.
I wanted to go back. You mentioned Second Saturdays. Tell us what that is.
So Second Saturdays happens every month, and obviously it's on the second Saturday of the month, and they usually start at 10 o'clock. And we do try to mix it up around the metro area so that people can, travel. Sometimes it's close and sometimes it's a little bit more of a drive. But if you could imagine kind of a rallying cry, you'll hear a little inspirational message. We'll have people who give testimonials about meeting other people. And then every event that we ever do, always there's a component or element of us getting to know one another. So we mix you up at tables, or we'll use the questions again. We play games. It's a great time to meet other people and to find out more about Unite KC and how you can get involved. So the leaders who are volunteering their time to lead these different vertical markets are there. And so, if you're an accountant, if you're an artist, if you are a musician, if you're a government official, there's a place for you at Unite KC where you can join with like-minded people to help us move the needle.
That's great. So, okay, you've been doing this. You started this in just before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've been growing this in a pandemic. Now we're like in pandemic phase 2. Where are you at? Tell us outcomes. How's it going?
That the pandemic was a challenge. It really took some creative leadership, not just on my part, but on every part, how we could keep people engaged. So, yeah, we have a very nice Zoom account, just like everybody else, but it was a challenge. And along the way, there were times we had things planned. We don't want to be known as that person where there is a great outbreak. So we've scaled things back. We've always been safe. I used some of our initial funds to buy one of those HEPA filter things that, worked on the air. So we always follow whatever guidelines the metro area offers us to keep people safe in the pandemic. And so far, so good. But it was really a challenge. We know that a number of nonprofits didn't make it through that era. And there is a number of people who had to do restarts. But as soon as we were able, we started gathering again and planning events. We are a major sponsor and partner with the Underground Performance at the Kaufman Center for the Arts. And so we were there this year, and that was a little sketchy because you had to have, a vaccination card according to the Kaufman. We just try to be good citizens and obey whatever regulations they have out for us. And so far, so good, like I said.
Well, as I mentioned, we're kind of in pandemic 2 or whatever you want to tag it as, but people are gathering. So what do you foresee, let's say, in your 5-year plan with Unite KC? Where are you going? What do you hope will happen as at least we're more safe in gathering? Let's put it that way.
There you go. I can offer a picture that everybody you'll be able to basically connect with. And so if you remember when our Royals won the World Series, and you remember that aerial shot that's so prominent and prevalent everywhere on the internet of all that sea of blue. Well, we envision that someday, if we continue our work and continue to partner with people across the metro, that we'll be able to have a meeting like that. We'll just call it, hey, we don't even have to call it Unite KC anything. We could just say, hey, we're united. We want to show the world and the rest of the city that we're a place where everything we want to happen in our city is one of peace, of prosperity. We want to close the education gap. We want to close the healthcare gap. We want to certainly close the wealth gap. We just want it to be a place where everybody can thrive.
So that big picture down there at Union Station, there was a whole lot of faces of different colors and diversity. I was very remiss in not letting you riff around the one good thing. What is it? Describe that so that our viewers and listeners can say, okay, so what does that mean? What am I supposed to do?
Once people hear the message and hear about how we're going about it, I mean, there's a place for peaceful protest. There's a place for a lot of different ways to get things done, a place for when you try to get government involved. But truly, you can legislate things, but it has to be a heart change within each one of us that say, this is what we want for ourselves, for our children, for our posterity. And so once they hear that message, a wonderful thing happens. They all say pretty much the same thing. Well, what can I do to get involved? And we can say it starts by doing one good thing. And so when we know what you're passionate about or where you've worked vocationally or how much free time you have, we have the ability to immediately plug you in with an organization, volunteering with us or someone else, one of our partners. And that's how we keep riffing around that one. Just do one good thing. And honestly, we hope it turns into another one and another one and another one. So
a ripple effect.
There you go.
Absolutely. Well, before we end the show, I know that I want to hear about, you were sharing your journey into this kind of work. Why this kind of work for you? Where did that come from?
It came squarely from my uncle. His name was Hyman Jarrett, and my dad, Raymond Jarrett Sr. They've both gone on. They passed away. But man, you talk about some formidable people who insisted on education, insisted on discipline, insisted on hard work. And they were both entrepreneurs here in the Kansas City area, very successful entrepreneurs. And so they were in business in the 70s and the 80s. And it was a tough time for, Black businessmen, access to capital, contracts, inroads. And so they were constantly in this struggle. I was old enough to remember the death of Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, even just some of the other notable people, Malcolm X. Who actually had this life-changing experience when he went overseas and came back and realized that the better way to work with people was to, as a matter of fact, no great social change in our country has ever happened unless we work together. And so I saw this all the way through high school, going through college. And so I was always on the fringes of what can we do. And so finding these other leaders who were passionate about it was just right up my alley. And so having this understanding of how business works, how things work in America, plus the background that I saw growing up, I would have done it I would have continued to do what I do in my other endeavors here and not be the leader. But I certainly counted a privilege to lead this organization and to be a part of it. So,
well, it seems as we go through life, sometimes those opportunities come by and you just say, I can't pass this one up. Yes. Although there might be challenges. Real quickly, what's the greatest challenge you face right now?
There's one central theme that if I could just take a scrub brush and, just kind of wash everybody's mind, it would be that we have allowed certain parts of the press to politicize this effort and make it either a Democrat or Republican thing. And it's not. We've had these issues for a while. We've made some inroads, but we certainly don't want to polarize the efforts by people wondering if we're far left or far right. And again, you can line up everybody who has who's ever been a part of Unite KC and who is a part. And if you poll them, you're going to find right, left, and middle. And so, but we don't care about that. We care about justice. We care about righteousness in the sense that righteousness is doing the right thing. And we care about just making sure that people are treated with dignity and respect. So that's one of the things that we have to overcome. We've had to overcome one of the things that you talked about. Are you guys just a religious organization? We are much more than that. We don't apologize for who we are, but at the same time, we're not going to make anybody feel any less than anything when they come and help join in the fight. So those are a couple of things.
That's Unite KC. Ray Jarrett leads it. Hop on over to their website. They're doing good work. One good thing. And we appreciate your sharing what you are doing in the city and in the region. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Ruth. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications. This segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. To be a guest on KC Cares or to learn more about us, visit our website, kccaresonline.org. Spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and Instagram at KC Cares Online. And don't forget, Saturday mornings, you can catch us at 8 a.m. on ESPN 1510 a.m., 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.